Hello, I'm Felicia Jackson.
And I am Giulia Bottaro.
Welcome to Shake and Not Burn. Every day we're bombarded with headlines of crisis and disruption, from climate shocks to inequality to AI upheaval.
But behind the noise are choices, patterns, and opportunities. What we need is sustainability literacy, the clarity and confidence to interpret complexity, see trade-offs, and make decisions.
Our podcast goes beyond the headlines to uncover how real people are tackling change and what we can learn from them.
You can use these ideas to stay steady, even unshakable, in a world that feels uncertain.
This is Shaken Not Burned. Hello and welcome back to Shaken Not Burned, the podcast that unpacks how sustainability really works in business, in systems, and in the choices we make every day. In the UK, every day we pour more than 2 billion litres of shower water down the drain. Water scarcity is already one of the world's top risks, but most solutions are focused on infrastructure and policy. Well, what if the answer lay in human behaviour? In the way we take a shower. So our guest today is Carly Hunt, who is Head of Strategic Partnerships at Showerkap and one of the very few women leading innovation in water technology. Showerkap combines smart engineering with behavioural science to actually nudge for shorter showers and track water use in real time. Early pilots have shown reductions of up to 58% in water use in hotels, and the technology is now being tested at universities. We're going to explore today why behaviour change matters for water resilience, how small nudges can add up to systemic impact, and what it takes to get everyday users, from hotel guests to students, to shift their habits in ways that protect one of our most precious resources. So, Carly, welcome to the show. In the UK, there's been such discussion about water. We know we're pouring water away. There's arguments about the water companies and the increase in the price of water and how water companies didn't invest in systems. There's even projections that the whole of the southeast will be in drought conditions by 2030. So why did you decide to start focusing on showers as the entry point for water resilience? Of all the ways to save water, why did you focus on this one moment of daily behaviour?
Thank you, Felicia, for having me. We use a lot of our water in our bathrooms. That's where the majority of our water use goes. And we focus on showers because we just see it going down the drain. We don't actually realise how much water we're actually using. And percent of that use is in bathrooms and in showers. So where it kind of really stemmed from is how we can measure and value water more efficiently and effectively, and to reimagine our relationship with it and to revalue this precious resource that we just don't have enough of. And that's where it began.
I love that, because we do think of water scarcity as something that's distant. You know, when you sit on a rainy day in England, you don't think water is something we need to worry about having access to. But for a lot of us, we don't think about the fact that it's not just what we drink and how we shower. It's industrial processes, it's cooling for AI data centres, it's all sorts of different things. And this idea of intervening on a personal level is fascinating. I want to take a step back, though, because one of the things that interests me, I've been told by a number of people that you are one of the very few women in water tech. Why do you think there are fewer women in water technology, and what drew you into the space? And then why Showerkap?
Yeah, there isn't very many of us. And I think I realise it more when you walk into a room or you go into a presentation and you see the amount of women that are not there. But we kind of see it as more of a personal challenge, really. Good news is that we are increasing in numbers, albeit slowly. I wasn't in this industry beforehand. I've completely done a 360 in my career and moved into this area. But naturally, I've always been in sustainability. Alongside my dissertation and my background is actually tourism management, and I focused on sustainable tourism as my dissertation. That was 20 odd years ago. So I was in hotels for most of my career, but kind of the latter part of it was really focused on environmental social governance in branded hotels. So when I got approached by Steve Harding, who's the CEO and founder, and he spoke to me about their mission and about what he was trying to achieve, I was very excited about it all, because obviously we were looking at energy and waste, and water was very much something that we couldn't tangibly deal with very easily. So it was a wonderful idea and it was very important. And I wanted to be part of something that was a bit bigger than what I was currently doing. So that's how I kind of navigated into water tech and into the industry.
I mean, there's some fascinating things to unpack there. Partly the being one of few women in water tech reminds me of what it was like in clean energy 20 years ago. And actually, one of the things that has to happen for a space to change is for lots of different perspectives, lots of different experiences to come together and actually work together to work out what is going to be effective in achieving change. Linking that to the sustainable tourism side of things, the number of areas and cities that are looking at sustainable tourism as a way of diversifying their economy, of building new ways of connecting to the rest of the world. And I think there is a real challenge is that, you increase the volume of people coming through a place. What do you do about the strain on resources like water? So to me, this is a fascinating way of bringing it together. So for our listeners, I think one thing that would be really useful to understand, how does the Showerkap technology actually work?
Yes, of course. The heart of the Showerkap solution is our Showerkap valve, and that has the patented fade technology. And this sits in to the pipe back into the showers. So this is what controls the showers, and this is how we use our behavioural change and a behavioural nudge to prompt users to shorten their showers. And it happens with the control. So you can set your timer with a mobile app. So the individual users can set their time and their fade temperature. And when they reach that timer, it gradually fades the temperature of the shower and prompts you to step out of your shower earlier.
So can I just restate that in a way so that I understand it? So before I get in the shower, I say I want a 4-minute shower, and at the end of 4 minutes, it starts getting colder to get me out of there?
Yeah, so it gradually then just shifts the temperature down, and there's that behavioural cue, almost like the hot water is running out to prompt you to leave that shower. So it's a very natural nudge that you've probably experienced anyway beforehand, but it's just something that is implemented with this Showerkap technology. And then obviously you can then look at what you're using and you can see exactly and track what your impact is having.
So does the mobile app itself track the amount of water that's gone through the valve?
Yes. Yeah. Because of the technology that we've used, we've had to put sensors in. So these IoT sensors sit in there as well. So that tracks your temperature, your flow, and your duration as well. And it then takes all that analytics and it takes up to our cloud system as well. So on a bigger scale, building managers can actually see exactly what's going on in a building. And it's very granular detail. So yes, you can see exactly how much water you're using, how much energy you're using to heat that water, and how much carbon you're using as well in that.
I mean, that sounds incredibly useful for those who are responsible for managing energy and water and carbon within a building. And I suppose, to be honest, I hadn't even really thought of it like that. I mean, can you tell us about your pilots at the Gatwick Hotel and at the University of Surrey and what you've actually learned from them?
Yes, of course. Yes. So the pilot that we set in place at the Sandman Signature Hotel in Gatwick, that started in April this year. And it's in one floor of the hotel. We call it the eco floor. So it's 20 rooms. And what we did is we just did 2 months of just gathering all the data. So with our technology, because it is very granular and it goes into each room, we can actually see exactly how much you're using in the shower, what you're using in the basin, in a bath, a flush, full flush toilet. That's how kind of granular we can get. And we were seeing like results that, 245 litres was literally being used in one go in a shower. That's how excessive the water use was. And at that point, we were saying, okay, 50% of that use was actually in showers. So after a couple of months of looking at the details and what was going on in those bathrooms, we could put the intervention in using our behavioural cue and our timer in the shower. So we started that in July this year. And from that, we set the timer at 7 minutes. So it's not kind of like, it was quite a nice
I mean,
time
that's a
for
fairly
everyone
long shower.
Yeah. So yeah, for 245 litres, you were looking at 35-minute plus showers that were going on.
Wow.
So 7 minutes is quite a difference. And we saw the impact, in just 3 months of how much that's saved. 217,000 litres for just 20 rooms in those 3 months has been saved. That's 15% of energy that's been saved for them as well, because you're
I mean, when you
reducing that
scale
hot
that up,
water.
sorry, but when you scale that up to a whole hotel, 300, 400, 500 people,
Yeah.
that's an incredible amount of water.
It's exceptionally a huge amount. And as I said, you have 58% reduction of guest usage
And
compared to ones that didn't have it.
did the guests who were using the showers in the pilot, did they actively consent to having this tested on them, or was it just, I mean, I'm assuming they did.
Yes, they did. Yeah. So we were very, I suppose the best way is we wanted it to interact and empower and make sure that the guests were part of this journey, that they're part of the solution. That's very much a key of how we're going to obviously improve behavioural change, and to reduce our consumption of water. So we dealt very closely with the hotel, with the staff, trained them, put messaging in the room, explaining why we were doing this, why it was important to do this, and what the impact of that would be. So yes, they are fully aware and they could opt out if they wanted to. And I think that's the most positive thing that we've gained from this, is that actually in those 3 months, all guests were on board. Not one opted out. They were all on board to do this change and to have this interaction with the showers.
What's fascinating about that is when you mention the amount of water that must be used for a 35-minute shower.
45
That's insane. I literally don't understand how anyone can spend that long in the shower, because a bath is for relaxation, but a shower is to get clean. And even if you're putting on conditioner, there's only a couple of minutes. And 7 minutes, when you put against the idea of a military shower of 2 minutes, feels like a lot. Yeah, I suppose it's really positive that people felt that 7 minutes was more than enough to get clean in and didn't want to just... Do you think people just leave the shower on when they wander around the bathroom?
There is cases that has happened,
Wow.
steaming clothes in a bathroom.
Oh, actually, that's a really good idea.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a deterrent as well. I mean, there are cases where people actually do just stay in the shower and just switch off. Sometimes it is kind of like they just go, oh, I'm just going to think about my daily. What have I done today? Or what have I got planned to do today? And they kind of just set into that kind of mindset of just being in the zone.
Chilling in the water.
Exactly. And not really thinking about anything else.
What would be interesting to know, we know that people took shorter showers. Were there any other behaviours that changed? What surprised you the most?
I think what surprised us most was the interaction. We were thinking that there would be some kind of ones that wanted to opt out, which was absolutely fine. We knew that we were not going to please everyone in that group, but actually everyone interacted and everyone wanted to partake in this. So that was really positive one that we took out. We did put some more hard nudges in rather than soft nudges, as we say, with the behavioural
what's a
cue.
hard nudge?
So hard nudge is physical messaging. So yeah, you can actually see it. So we did put some light messaging in the bathroom about other areas from the data collection that we've seen about shortening and turning off your taps while brushing your teeth, etc.
I did think about that.
Yeah. So they're just simple things, but their basin usage was very high as well. So we actually have seen about a 34% reduction in basin use as well, by just kind of taking that information that we got in those 2 months and shifting it around. And then we've seen a slight reduction in baths as well, because obviously there was baths in those rooms as well. We did a 10% reduction in baths just by reminding them not to fill it all the way to the top, just do half a bath rather than a full bath. So very little tiny nudges, as well as the behavioural cue that we've put into the shower. Obviously the shower's been, I say, the most significant reduction of water in a bathroom since we've
That makes sense.
implemented it.
I have to ask, though, just for my own interest, is a shower, as a general rule, associated with higher water usage than a bath, or the other way around?
Well, it depends how long you're having a shower for. Yeah.
Okay, that's a valid point. It was a silly question.
No, because the longer they spend, obviously, they use more water in the shower than they would in the bath.
Right. Of course. That does make sense. I suppose it's just one of those ongoing arguments that does come up every now and again.
It does. And I think
nobody really knows. No one I've ever argued with it about has ever really known the answer.
No, I think it's also due to the flow rate of showers, how we have this lovely array of all these different showers that we can have, like power showers and, all these rain heads and luxury showers. They use a lot more water per minute than, if you filled a bath. So you really do have to look at what kind of shower that you're looking at.
What's interesting about that is the fact that we come back to something we talk about quite a lot, which is you actually need to understand the circumstances you're in. You need to understand what the different levers for change are. You have to understand how things are set up around you, because we often talk about the challenge that climate change is seen as this big existential problem, this existential threat, and that people feel as if nothing they do will make any difference, which is helped by very carbon intensive industries arguing that people are responsible and, they shouldn't fly and they shouldn't do this and they shouldn't do that. And I think there's something interesting about saying, well, if you know what's going on around you, you can change the things you do, and small changes add up to large changes. And I think maybe if you become aware of your usage in one situation, that might extend to awareness in other situations. Is that something you've come across? Is that something that is common in behavioural science?
Yes, definitely. I think we've always talked about behavioural nudge, about how we need to encourage people to change, but to not kind of force it on them, because that
People
will
have to
not
feel
work.
as if it's their own choice.
Exactly. They do need to be empowered and to feel they have that choice to make those changes. Otherwise, they just won't stick. But we kind of see that also as the behavioural, we call it behavioural spillover, where if you make that change, like in a business or where you work or in a hotel, it kind of naturally moves with you into your life outside of that. So you use those experiences and it spills over into other environments that you're in as well. So that's kind of where we're heading, and that's how we want to move our shower cap solution into this. It actually does provoke that change, and it does empower the user to use that and to take it elsewhere into their lives as well. And we call it kind of like a little bit of a ripple. So it ripples out to other areas in their lives, but also to maybe their family, their partners in their house.
One of the things we all know is that nobody likes to be told what to do, especially people don't like to be told what to do if they think they're being blamed for something. So finding the right means of communication so that people don't feel like they're being accused of something. They're not being accused of using too much water. You're just making them aware of the situation they're in. But how do you actually design a behavioural nudge in a way that encourages people to change without making them feel as if they're being told what to do?
Yeah, we wanted from the outset to make people part of the solution. And I think that's a key thing that you need to do, but also obviously to give them that choice so that they can interact with it. They can set their own goals, their own time, their own temperature. And we also wanted people to be rewarded and make it fun as well, and not rather than just your normal greenwashing going on, that you can actually physically see what you're achieving, and that you're using less water and energy and reducing your carbon footprint at the same time. So potentially what we're looking at doing is really gamifying this mobile application. So for instance, the university that we're in at the moment, in the future, what we're looking for it to do is to interact with those students and maybe have some kind of competition between the campus buildings, etc., and really get them involved. Yeah, and just make them feel part of the journey. I think that's a very important thing, and part of the solution. Definitely.
I must admit that one of the things that struck me when you were talking about the way in which Showerkap works is so many people I know are into this idea of a, cold shower shock at the end of a shower because it's good for your skin and supposed to be good for your skin and supposed to be good for your hair, but actually just can't make themselves do it. So I did wonder this would be a way of going, okay, I'm going to have a lovely warm shower and now I'm going to get that flash of freshly cold water. I know that obviously you fade it out, but I just thought that kind of thing about letting people use it in their own way, because if you can make people feel it's theirs, I think that's much more likely, as you say, to sustain long-term change. We talk a lot about water scarcity and we talk about water use, but actually I think most of us don't know that much about water and water use. So what would you say is the biggest misconception about water use?
Misconception or disinformation is probably part of the parcel, but most people in the UK, and it's no fault of our own, we just don't have that means to actually know how much we use. They feel that we just use 62 litres of water per household per day. And in reality, we're using 323 litres or more. So that's 5 times more than what we believe we're actually using.
Wow.
And we just don't realize how much water we do use, and we don't value it because we can't picture it, because we can't measure it effectively. And I think historically everyone's gone, oh, we're not really a hot or water scarce country. We have lots of rain, etc. And I mean, just take into instance this year, we're still in drought where we are. We're officially in drought. And it's the
Sorry,
ninth
can I just interrupt?
driest.
Where
Yeah,
are you that's officially in drought?
we're in Sussex. So we're
Okay.
in the south of England. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
It really interests me because I remember there was a story decades ago about a plan to build a pipeline through the whole country to bring water from the north and from Scotland to the south. And obviously, like most big government programs, it fell by the wayside for reasons of cost, agreement, argument. But the fact is, we've known there's issues around access to water in the south for a really, really long time. But I think it's really politically difficult to talk about.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is very difficult to talk about. And I think that's where we need to also change our mindset, because we notoriously have suffered. And this year, particularly, we've had the ninth driest year in over 150 years. And it hasn't just affected the south. Scotland have really suffered as well. So has the north. And this is where we kind of need to think about how our mindset should really change. And we subconsciously think that we've got this never-ending supply of water, but actually we're consistently over-consuming it and we're outstripping our supply. So on average, say we use 140 litres per person per day in the UK. And if we have a 10-15-minute shower, which is what we're focusing on, that is 150 litres potentially of water we've used. And that's not taking into account toilet flushes, washing machines, dishwashers. So yeah, it's really changing our mindset and how we visibly see water, and how we can contribute to obviously consuming less of it to help our
And
resource.
that makes sense. And correct me if I'm wrong, but most buildings in the UK they're not set up for grey water use. And grey water use is basically reusing wasted water.
Yes. I mean, obviously the new builds that are going in, I mean, we have to, as you know, we've got 1.5 million that are due to be put in, that's set by the government. Most of them have got grey water systems or some kind of sustainability put in place for those. But we have to also think that we've got this huge stock of old buildings that need to meet that same efficiency. And it's 29 million homes that would need to be looked at to be retrofitted to make them up to speed to at 1.5 that's going in. So it's a huge, it's a huge mammoth task.
I was just thinking about the fact that we talk a lot about the need to retrofit the UK's homes for energy. And we've got to retrofit them for water. I suppose the big thing is, where is it? Where's it going? How's it being used? How's it structured? Because there's obviously a lot of talk around the UK housing environment at the moment, and there being too much water in the wrong places, which leads to mould. There's so much that needs to be done about all of these really, really big challenges. And I think that can be quite scary for people. And I mentioned earlier this idea that many people think that individual behavioural change is too small to matter. But what do you think people get wrong about the power of small shifts?
I think that obviously we have that technology to make the change, but unless obviously we change our behaviour, it's not going to make a significant difference. It's the most effective and fastest way to do it. And we can all make these small shifts and these small changes to actually contribute to a much bigger impact. And we did a case study with a single user and only changed the showering for about a couple of minutes and wasn't a huge amount. We did reduce the flow of the shower from 12 litres down to 9, so it wasn't huge. And in that period, in 6 months, she reduced it by 50%. So that was reduction in energy and water use. And that was 54 litres per day per shower. So if you think about a whole year, that's 20,000 litres that person saved in a year So if you can imagine, if you then multiply that by millions, how much
Yeah.
impact that would have, not just
Well,
in,
there's two things
nationwide, but
there, one of which is multiplying that impact, which really shows how much difference behavioural change can make alongside policy and industrial shifts. But actually, for those of us who are going through the water price increases because of the failure of the water companies to look after their infrastructure, 20,000 litres is probably a lot of money.
depending on your household as well and how many you have in your household,
Yeah.
it'd be significant,
So,
especially with the increases of prices recently.
So one of the things that then springs to mind is, what does it take to put a shower cap in? So I know that you're working with businesses rather than with individuals, but how much time does it take to put these sensors in and the valve into these showers?
Fairly simple fit. It does go in by a plumber or an electrician.
Okay.
But to them, it's almost like putting in a blending valve. It's very kind of a simple job to a professional, and they just go in and they put it into the pipework. So they cut a section of that pipework and insert our sensors and our valve into there. So it could
Okay.
only take only an hour to 2 hours per fit. So it doesn't take too much time at all.
Okay. So that for me was one of my first thoughts about, how difficult it is. Are there other barriers to adoption, either in hospitality or in the universities or other sectors where there might be interest in implementing it?
I think all groundbreaking technology, which is new and a little bit unproven, takes some time. And it takes companies with strong sustainability commitments and that want to take that leap of faith to kind of really push and be a visionary in this system and reducing of water consumption. And that's where we've kind of very lucky that we had this hotel, Sandman that came aboard very much into their green sustainability and wanted to see like a change in water consumption where they were as well. And it's about being more than eco-friendly. It obviously saves money as well,
Mhm.
obviously, and it's a driver. But it's protecting their building in the future for being a bit more resilient and lowering their insurance risks as well for the future. And it's appealing to customers as well. And that's why we're kind of hitting more the bigger users of water like hotels and universities, because we know that the need for eco-conscious travelers is ever growing. And we can see the trends and the research which showing that actually we're physically looking for more eco-friendly choices while we're traveling rather
Yeah.
than looking at the best deals or the best places to go.
So that then brings me to the big question of cost. So, clearly this is a solution that's going to save money, that's going to save water. But how do you balance cost and convenience and impact when you're actually pitching this to potential users?
So obviously our first pilot has shown a saving of the 217,000 litres just for 20 rooms. So if we looked at then scaling that, like we said before, like the 151 rooms that they have annually, that potential for saving is 62,000 plus, depending on how they can interact and how efficient they use this system. That's 20 tons of carbon potentially that you're saving a year, which is, I think, the equivalent of a car driving 50,000 or 51,000 miles a year. That's 4.5 billion litres of water that one hotel has saved as well. So the savings are just kind of multiplying as you go along, and then obviously your energy savings as well. So with our system in place and the ROI, you're looking between 1 to 2 years to see
Okay.
that return of investment. So actually, it's quite quick for the water industry to turn that around, because we're not just looking at water. And we have to think about this, that water is actually intrinsically linked to everything else. So it's linked to energy, it's linked to carbon. We're not just focusing on water here. It's the whole cycle.
And I think that is one of the key shifts I've certainly seen in the last 18 months, that people were really focused on carbon or energy efficiency. But there is a growing recognition that these things are interconnected and that expenditures you have in one area directly correlates to expenditure in each of those other areas. So I suppose that is the business case, really, that whatever the cost, the ROI is relatively short term, and that it benefits the company that owns the hotel in cost, in carbon impact, and I suppose long-term potentially in cost of capital, insurance premiums, all of these different things that I suppose when water does start getting priced in a non-regulated fashion, which it does appear we are moving towards simply because of the scarcity of it, then anyone who's too reliant on too much water for their industrial systems is going to suddenly be faced with much higher bills.
Yeah.
What is one story you can tell me from your pilots that really gives you hope that people are going to change their behaviour at scale?
Yeah, I think because we really wanted to make sure that we had that interaction with the guests and that it was a positive reaction. And I think because we haven't had any opt-outs, they've all generally been and adopted this 7-minute shower and the reduction. That's been the most positive piece of information that we've got out. Obviously, the reduction of water and the energy and seeing that physical change has been amazing as well. And our trials are delivering some really great data. And I think that's just proving that the business can reduce carbon footprint and we can reduce these huge savings in water and energy as well.
I haven't asked you about that you wish I had done. So what's one action that you would like listeners, whether they're hotel guests or students or just people at home, what would you like them to take away from this conversation?
I think that we should really think about not just what happens in our household or our businesses, is what happens outside. So we need to think about the water waste. So obviously, if we're over consuming, we're putting extra strain on our waterway system, which then unfortunately leads to more water pollution in our seas. So it makes them beaches unsafe and obviously no-go areas. So really is to think about obviously not just what's happening inside our homes and our buildings, but what actually putting a strain on the outside as well. And also taking shorter showers is not just about saving water, it's about saving energy and about saving carbon as well. And I think that's really something that we'd like to see, obviously, taken into consideration more. It's not just about water.
And I think that's probably one of the most important things for anything that we actually discuss, is just remembering that we are in this world where the interconnections between all the different actions that we take are as important as the interconnections at a policy level, at a financial level. You know, I think, as you said, Carly, small shifts can ripple outward. That's what I find exciting about what you're doing at Showerkap. And Carly, thank you so much for joining us. I think what we've talked about here, despite the fact that you're representing a company that is focused on a technology, really what we're talking about when we talk about sustainability is that it's not just about technology. It's actually about the little moments and the habits that, when you put them together, quietly add up to a change in the way in which we live, a changed approach to resilience. Showers might seem like something really simple and ordinary, but innovations like Showerkap actually prove that behaviour change and smart design, when you combine them, can drive massive change across entire industries. So to our listeners, thank you for listening today to Shaken Not Burned. Thank you, Carly, for joining us.
No, thank you.
And join us next week, where we will continue to explore the stories, systems, and everyday actions that make sustainability work.